Yeah, it's something amazing about with the fighting, and I guess in anything that you want to be really successful, you got to be crazy and delusional, where you almost got to deny the facts and statements, like you were saying, right? And then, but I guess with the losses, you get to learn about yourself, and then you get to know what you're made of coming back and regrouping, and this is you've bounced back before, and that almost gives you the same type of motivation from being undefeated, maybe, like, oh look, this fight I got finished, and then I came back and I finished this guy, and I proved that,
That's that's the DC asked me. He's just like, after you had some losses and then your last fight, like you come back, like how sweet was it to people were talking. He said, like, even I was on ESPN and we get told, like, oh, talk about maybe Dan Hooker should retire, but that's and then after my last fight, he's like, how good was it to shut all of those people up? Or what do you have to say to the people that like critique you and stuff like that? And I wasn't at all negative about it. Like, I personally feel like after some losses or after a guy gets knocked out, like, these are questions that need to get asked. And it needs to be a part of our it's like a part of our life cycle as fighters, because if the guy does get knocked out, we can't have the attitude where it's like, oh yeah, chuck him back in there. Oh, I got knocked out again. Oh, that's all right. He's an exciting guy. Chuck him back in there. It's like, how many times before we start asking these questions? So it's like, of course I'm not offended by people saying that, or I don't get insecure, or I don't self-doubt myself when people start asking those questions, because I feel like they need to be asked. And the way that you answer them is go out there and perform, is go out there and prove to everybody that of what you're capable of. Like, it all comes down to the fighter. It all comes down to the individual. If the individual, if you individual, like, no one can convince you otherwise. No one can convince a fighter otherwise. If a fighter doesn't want to fight, that's it. That's it. That's done. Like, you need to move on. But yeah, I'm like, not at all. I don't that, like, things like that don't at all like upset me. I feel like it's a necessary part of the life cycle. Is after like losses, people do ask questions, and then as the losses continue, like, those questions or that outside noise gets louder, because we, like, as we were speaking before, like, fighters are delusional. I am delusional. I could lose 20 times and still want to have a fight. You know what I mean? If people let me. But it's like, if you do lose, like, that, you get more noise. Oh, you lose again, like, more noise. You get lose again, like, now the people around you start being like, hey guy, you're delusional. You know what I mean? Like, that, and it's just a necessary it's a necessary part of our life cycle.
Yeah, you gotta have it. You gotta have it. I guess in anybody who's successful, they have to have that delusion where you gotta believe in yourself, even if nobody. Maybe that's a way. You gotta believe in yourself, even though nobody else around you believes in you. And that's, I feel like, that's key for, especially for combat sports, when it's just you and another person.
Like, that's a necessary part. That's a necessary part. That is a must. That is needed. Like, if you don't believe in yourself, you could have a million people. Like, you know what it's like. You could have a million people like, you're going to win this fight easy. But if you don't think you're going to win, it's like the first punch you take, you're just like, if you have a shred of self-doubt,
they're right.
You get hit and you're just like, maybe this isn't for me. Like, it's like just a necessary part.
That's a hard demon to conquer, man. That's the one thing I wish, if I had, like, if there was a serum or something you can take, it's like, of self-belief. If they had a potion of selling it, I would fucking buy it in the gallons,
I think everyone would. I think that'd be
yeah, can you see?
I think it's called cocaine. I think that's why I think it's why they banned it in USADA. You know what I mean?
With the right amount of cocaine, you can believe anything you want. You're like, yo, I'm gonna start a business tomorrow.
Yeah.
In the bathroom,
really deluded.
So then, all right, getting finished and stuff like that. This has been the hard one for me. Like, do you think that, all right, if a fighter gets chinny, or do you believe in getting chinny, or do you think, like, when somebody gets dropped or something like that, is that like a facts thing that, like, oh, for sure, like, you gotta? Do you think if you get dropped or something, you should change the way you fight? Like, should you become like, all right, now if I got cracked and I know I'm a little bit, get more defensively sound, or do you think that's like a mentality thing? Like, no, it's because something mentally happened. That's why I got dropped or something. Where if you kind of like, because I have had times in sparring where like I'll get cracked hard, and I'm like, oh fuck. But then if I just kind of like bite down my mouthpiece and accept, like, all right, we're gonna go, and then I kind of keep my eyes open more bright, I can feel like the more shots coming. You know.
Like I would say it's in my opinion like a mixture of both. I think I feel like you can get chinny if you don't give it enough time between concussions or between like knockouts. Like then obviously like a concussion is a bruise on your brain, and if I have like a bruise on my leg and then I wake up every day and I punch it, it's never gonna go away. So it's like I have to let that go away. It's the same as like with a knockout. Like if you get knocked out and you fight soon and you rush back too quickly, obviously like the bruise isn't healed. There's more chance of you getting knocked out, I'd say. But from that, like giving it the right amount of time off, understanding concussion and understanding the symptoms and understanding how to deal with it, understanding that it needs respect and to be treated properly, I feel like is very important. Changing your style, I'd say if you're like Wild West shootout Chuck Liddell and you're getting knocked out, and you're capable of making those adjustments, you're at a stage of your career where you're capable, then definitely make those adjustments. But I would say the biggest thing or the hardest thing after you get like knocked out is like the mental ability to come back, and those questions and the people around you being like, maybe he's like, people saying maybe he's chinny, maybe he's this, maybe he's that. As a fighter, you know that, you know, anything can happen out there. Like you zig and then you zig and you should have zagged, and you wake up staring at the lights. That's part and parcel with being a professional fire player. Like you're playing with fire for a living. Like one day you're gonna get burned. Like that's just the facts of the situation. You do the sport long enough, you're gonna go to sleep. Like that's the sport, and it's But so it's a mixture. I would say like a mixture of all three of those things.
Yeah, the mentality with but there is, you can definitely like, if you do get dropped or you feel like some way, there is definitely something to like, yeah, you know, being a little bit more defensively sound, especially in the beginning. Like I know like a lot of guys, they'll be crazy, like they'll feel unstoppable because until they get dropped, they don't even think it's possible, right? Like, nah, I'm not going to get dropped. It's not me. And then when it happens, you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's time to like, you know, switch things up a little bit, you know? Yeah. Oh, man.